we are. This is the September 6, 2007 meeting of the Shade Tree Commission for the City of Athens, and the meeting is now called to order. We have a fairly full agenda, and the first items will be tree permit and rights-of-way issues. The first issue is something that was brought to us by the mayor's office and by the police department, and it is a request to look at and to have damaged trees removed from the site of the law administration building, probably better recognized by some as the police department. So get through the euphemism there. So there had been trees there that had broken in some gusts, and the chief of police would like to have those taken out, the trees that remain, and other trees would be replaced. There was new information that Ann Bonner didn't have when she looked at these trees, and that is there's a little driveway on the other side where the Presbyterian church office building is.
And there's a rental upstairs also.
Yeah, and so there's... Yeah, and there's a driveway here, so this is not quite accurate. This space here is about 6 feet wide. There is a small tree lawn here. It has a utility pole in the middle of it, and there is the 10 or 20-minute parking space that the police department has right out in front. So that's not a potential planting site, really.
It was wishful thinking.
It was.
And,
thank you.
Add another tree.
But there are spaces for other trees here. Let's see.
Bonsai plants or something.
Are there any comments on the recommendation of the chief of police about these?
You wanted all of them removed?
Well, are we going to be able to replace some with
Something else?
with pin oaks?
Pin oaks or some sort of bur oak, but something that Presbyterians can get past without scratching their cars. So something that limbs up on
the pin oaks that I've seen near parking lots can be limbed up to a reasonable height fairly easily.
what I liked about those is they would sit above where
Yes.
the law office is, so I
Yes.
thought, well, at least on one side, it's really a nice shady spot there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room. There's no overhead issues that I could see. Frankly, the one on the closest to the building too probably is an okay tree. Could be thinned maybe. I don't, if you didn't have money to put 3 back or 4 back, it didn't have the bad branch structure that the other one did. I don't know if you could read my writing there.
It says remove poor bear.
Yeah, there were 2 that are really bad branch structure that were damaged in the storm. It looked like one missing. One was just missing outright. It was a big stump. And then the one closest to the building actually was probably the nicest of all the pears. It's a calorie pear. But it had decent branch structure, so it being so sheltered, it probably would last a long time. So, but it is, I could see where, if you know anything about pear trees, about that size, they start to give you trouble.
Yeah. This is coming from the administrative budget, so this is a chance to get 3 nice new trees in here, old and other trees removed. So, and these are the kind of pears that do turn into sales in the middle.
Is there space for 3 large shade trees?
Oh yeah. There were if you removed the remaining 3, there'd be room for 4 trees, because like I said, there was a tree, quite a big tree that was removed right next to the sidewalk. If you see the bottom of the picture right there. I don't see where it's a visibility issue for either the sign or people pulling out, because there's enough, there's still a sidewalk there, and of course they allow parking right there, so if you can get around the parked vehicles.
Yeah, if you can see around an SUV, you should be able to see around a tree.
Yeah. So I'd say we'd recommend, if they remove all the remaining trees, I'd say 4 uniform oaks would be really nice there, and there was about 10 squirrels that were lounging the day I was there. I felt so bad for them. I was like, couldn't go to their homes.
Okay.
Well,
I think that sounds good.
Yes.
We'll have new homes.
Okay. So we will. The secretary has this as a recommendation of
We'll
removal.
go with Ann's recommendation. Yeah.
All right. Very good. So that I thank you, Ann, if you need that. There you go. The second item, and Ann did this also, it might even be in that packet that I so freely gave to you. Let's see, it's the Charlie Brown Courthouse Christmas tree. Which has, it's a little tree, and hence, and it gets kicked around. Let's see, this was a request by the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber would very much like to have something bigger and more dramatic at this spot as the Christmas tree for the Christmas season. That's basically the problem. There is a physical problem with that site, which is a really small tree hole or tree coffin, as they're so eloquently called. And, well, Anne, would you like to summarize? You're more knowledgeable, you should say.
Gosh, well, I went and looked at it. It is a 6x6 tree pit. You know, as I recall, it was never the prettiest of trees, but it is alive. You know, it's got stem elongation and buds for next year.
They don't grow very fast anyway, do they?
They don't. And, you know, of course, after I wrote this, you know, I've looked at it a few times since then, and we probably could have gotten a better specimen to begin with, because as I remember, that one just wasn't, it was always a little bit small. But it is a nice, it's
expensive to buy a bigger tree.
You're right, it is expensive, and they sit there, and it's a tough site. I mean, you could see where people have broken branches. You know, I could tell where people have fallen into the tree, and some of the branches were broken. You know, the soil was really compacted. So what I would do if it were my tree is I would take a soil probe and really aerate the soil, and then maybe put some compost around it. You know, it wouldn't hurt to water it. It's so dry. I mean, we're in a severe drought right now.
I think the city may be watering it. There's a crew that goes out and does that little park there, and some.
Okay.
I don't think it would be in as good a shape as it is had they not. But yes, anything else?
Yeah, well, that would be an option, is to just try to stick with the investment we've already made and nurse it along. And just, our kids aren't always perfect, but we just don't throw them out and start over.
Right,
you know?
right.
Do you think
That's a little effort.
that it would ever fill in around the bottom where those broken branches are? Or is
I think it could.
You think it could?
You know, it's definitely going through some awkward times.
Well, would it help it at all if it had some sort of rail or protection
Yeah.
lower down?
Yeah, I thought about that. Even if it was like a short rail, you know, if we could find maybe some recycled metal, you know, that
Well,
even
it'd
was
probably
just
have to be made for it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, or they sell
mean-
that, you know, and you can, at those different streetscape, or if there's anybody that does metalworking, you know, even maybe just those metal flowers, you know, that people are selling around here. I don't know.
As long as people don't trip over it, that would be the other issue there.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're going to stumble into a tree, they'd
It'd
to
have
have
to
them
be.
stumble into the fence and then the tree. You know,
Yeah.
Well, you'd make it high enough so they
It
would
would have to be high enough, yeah.
If the chamber really wants some sort of a big tree at this site, they're
Looking at a lot of money.
yeah, it's going to be terribly
Yeah.
expensive, and enlarging that hole would be a very difficult thing. There's a lot of stuff underground at that site, so this is a difficult thing to do. I suppose one option might be to bring in a big cut tree and have a big tree and a little tree to decorate, if they really must have a decorated one. But
Are they
Steve's
willing
got
to,
Steve has a point.
I know too, going in depth, I mean, you could make the pit bigger, but there's concrete not very deep.
Yeah.
And you're talking about major excavations to go deep.
Yeah.
So a larger tip, like it's a more deep-rooted tree,
It's not gonna
you
work.
can make the pit bigger, but it's, you know, the pit itself in depth is gonna be limited, no matter how big.
Yeah.
It's just basically a big, huge concrete corner.
Yes.
But tree roots, most of the tree roots are within a foot or 18 inches of the surface of the soil.
I just wanted to point out the fact that if you were, you know, looking
It's
at
gotta
something
go
that may have
out.
to, yeah, if
It's
it's
gotta
spread
go
out,
further.
that's fine,
Yeah.
it's gonna stay there. If you have to go any deeper,
Yeah.
there you go.
it's a tough site.
Mhm.
Well, Alfie
And-
had an idea, real quick, if I could, you know, of maybe replacing it and putting a shade tree there and just kind of abandoning the Christmas tree idea. You you know, we've had oaks there in that site for 20-some years, and they've done well, but.
But
so-
I think they want something for Christmas. And there is that
Oh,
tree
they
at the
did.
very end of Court Street by the Armory that George Weisenbaugh planted all those years ago as a potential city Christmas tree. But I think it's too far from the center of town for the, it is a beautiful tree. It's just really, it's perfect.
It is.
So, I don't know, I'm loath to give up on the effort that was made in the first
Maybe
place
when
and the
we meet-
expense.
then maybe when we meet with the Chamber to talk about the landscape ordinance, we can ask them how much they're willing to contribute to the upkeep or the cost of a tree.
Shall we then just wait on that, Paul?
But how big a tree can you put in there if you only have a 6x6 container? I mean,
You can buy trees, evergreens are usually sold 3 to 4 foot, 5 to 6 foot, and 7 to 8 foot. Those are the ranges. They're not, they're stiff, that's their sizes. So, you know, you could put in a 7 or 8 foot, or it would probably fit in the hole. You think
That's what it is now, isn't it?
It's getting
It-
It's
close.
bigger than me. so
Well,
it's
you're
not
right,
more
it
than 6
is. It
feet.
just doesn't have that kind of sweep, you know, that.
Oh, I see. So you think
They're
you could buy a
healthy.
better looking one?
Because
that
it's been
size.
nursed along in a nursery site. Now, you
Yeah.
know, give it a year, you know, it might look the same. It's a tough site. I mean,
Yeah.
think about the people that congregate on that site every day. So that's, you know, and it is a charming tree, and we have put a lot of time and energy into it. You were going to say.
I was just going to ask whether Norway spruce might be any tougher and faster growing.
Yeah, you know, I thought of that, and it would also have more of that swoopy look, that little Christmas tree look. So that would be something maybe to discuss with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're also easier to find, a bigger. You know, it's harder
Would
to
they
find.
be
the
any
blue spruce.
cheaper
Yeah.
than?
They're usually a little easier to find.
Well, shall we just postpone this and approach the chamber and see how deep their pockets and their
bad they
spirit
want
of
a Christmas
is?
tree.
Yeah.
Because even if you plant a new tree there, you're going to have to do the preparation on the ground anyway that you're talking about doing just to maintain that one, and you may want
A railing anyway.
A railing anyway. I mean, so there are some things to think about, I think, before we go any further.
But if they're wanting to have children's decorations on it, is a railing going to interfere with that?
Well, we could make
We'll
it so it
find
could be removed, I think. I mean,
Yeah,
you
for
know,
the season.
Yeah.
I mean, there should be a way to accommodate that.
Right. City crew is sharp. They know how
Yeah.
to do that. So,
I think this stuff is removed like a walk off in the middle of any night.
yes, that's true too.
Well, it depends how it's installed. I mean, the ones that these shields that you call these frames that you can buy for trees can be locked in place until the crew with the right tools takes them out.
Well, we won't speculate on Steve Pearson's mischievous youth.
No, I'm just town.
See it all.
Yes, yes. Yeah, code gets to do Halloween often the last. Well, okay, the next item on this is the planning and removal list, and you remember last time that Ron Lucas gave us an extensive removals list that he had done. We have just received confirmation about a tree at 10 Costs, which we had been waiting for right-of-way information on, that it is halvesies. Half of the tree is in the city right-of-way, half of the tree is on the university's right-of-way.
Really?
Yes, this is according to a finding by, I don't know who did the measuring, but so the tree really is in wretched shape. This is on the corner of Coss, and I think we may have a picture of it here someplace thanks to Paul Large. Well, no, alas.
Yeah, I think it, no,
Oh,
is that
it's-
second, the next
can
one
you
down?
tell?
Is that the one on the corner right there? No.
Maybe
maybe
it's one
not.
of those. So this
And it's,
really needs action.
I think it's this one right
don't
here.
you? And
you
you've
can just see
seen
the
it.
skeleton.
I would
It's not
agree, I
like
went
that.
by to look at it.
There you go.
It's the top left-hand corner. All you can see is the skeleton of it there.
Oh, okay.
It's got some greenery in the bottom.
Yeah, it's been either topped or it's been.
No, it's not that one. I think it's on.
No.
I think it has a
Right.
It's a
lot.
right-hand
Yeah,
corner,
okay.
isn't it? Yeah.
Parking lots
Yeah,
have
that's not gonna
expanded and
work.
expanded and pretty much taken away all the area where the tree might get rainwater down to roots. So many other things probably happen. We probably need the Service Safety Director's office just to tell how to proceed, but I think for safety's sake that the city ought to get this taken down.
So our
shortly.
recommendation to him would be to remove it and let him figure out how he's going to negotiate it with OU.
Yeah, not to wait any longer. But
Chainsaws meet in the middle.
Oh,
OU
yes.
chainsaw, yeah, city chainsaw.
Pull it apart like a wishbone, you know?
Yes, it has potential. Okay, the secretary has that?
I have that one.
All righty. And then the planting list, this, forgive the, oopsie, no, you can't have that one, I'm sorry. This is a tentative, it's a beginning planting list, and, let's see, did I really get my, there is something that should be in here from the minutes, and it was numbers 63 and 121 Morris. Those were removals. At this point in the year, we've had about between 9 and we'll have up to about a dozen removals, I think, before the end of the year. It would be good to plant at least that many trees, if not more, and we generally do. And so these are suggestions. The only thing that is really firm is we've got 3 hackberries scheduled at the parking lot for West Arts Building, and Nurseryman is in search of those. And then there are others we can discuss at a later point. I would like to propose that we have a scouting expedition to go and look at sites, and maybe have an initial one possibly after the farmer's market this Saturday. It would be nice to have our list to a nurseryman by the end of this month, don't you think? Yeah. Does,
I'm busy this Saturday morning.
okay.
So,
Morris has a lot of really good planting sites and a lot of trees
At
that we've removed.
the West End of Morris, yes. There's
Yeah.
at the high end is where there's a number of spaces. Yes.
Yeah. Well,
And in
if-
fact, at that end, the Jaegers Funeral Home wanted to take out those
Right.
Acer campestras and replace them, I think, at their own expense. But all we were waiting for was for them to say what they wanted to put there to make sure we approved it.
Yeah.
I believe.
I think that's where that was.
Yeah, and so that's another place where we could put some large shade trees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, even
those
down
are-
by your place, there's some that.
Well, that's 121 is where there's the Zelkova that's died.
All right.
Okay. Another thing about these sightings is that it would be good to find sites where people really will adopt the tree,
Yes.
take care, water, mulch, weed. And so far, West Arts is enthusiastic, and there's 1 or 2 other places. But so as we start adding to this list, we need that. Well, if we can't do this Saturday, is there a Sunday possibility?
Yeah, Sunday's possible for me in the afternoon,
Emily?
perhaps.
No, not, let's see.
Those Presbyterians.
Yeah, this weekend, it's the next weekend that I have a problem. Yeah,
Okay.
Sunday afternoon would be fine.
Okay. Well, shall we try to do it late-ish, like 6, when it might be starting to cool, or is that too close to dinner? What?
6.
Okay. I propose a rendezvous at, let's see, shall we meet at West Arts Building in the parking lot?
Arts West, you mean?
Arts West,
Yeah.
thank you.
Let's start. Okay, I'll try to make it. I may be running late on something.
Okay. And that's Sunday. All right. And onward.
In terms of tree removal stuff, kudos from Mr. Castle about his tree being removed on Granville. So he's pleased.
He's pleased?
Yes, he called up and thanked me for getting the thing removed. And it wasn't me, so it was you guys, so I just want to let you guys know.
Yeah, that was,
And a thank you to Mr. Jack Stoffer, who got rid of the stump on Lancaster, too.
Yeah. I saw that.
A gesture of neighborly goodwill.
Oh, you mean the city didn't pay for that?
No,
That
he
was
did.
Jack.
Wow.
Jack did it.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, very good.
yeah, and he tries to pretend he's such a toughie, okay.
Are we going to write him a letter?
I think we should thank Jack, and I think, well, yes, I will do that. Is there any other planting removal? We have a citizen request here about the bike path, and we have a very full agenda, so if, I hate to do this to you, I know that you've got a great project potentially for us, but can we limit the comments to about 3 to 5 minutes at the most, please? So this is the query about the trees along the bike path, and I think Mike Are you going to make comments or proposals about
Yeah,
this? or-
there's a bunch of trees.
Please come up to the,
Bike path,
come to the table, please.
Yeah, come to the table. That's
Pull
great.
the chair up.
Yeah, and identify, give us your name and your address so you can be official.
okay. My name is
Thank you,
Michael.
Steve.
I have no address. So, anyway, there's a bunch of trees along the bike path. Me and Ann went and looked at them. They've been neglected, abused, otherwise tormented. The ones that I think are worth saving, that aren't all beat up and back, I think they need to be mulched. And if you guys want them mulched, I think I can get them mulched. So it's pretty much a yes or no. You want them mulched?
Well, some of them, I think, if this is the list that Anne circulated, but not our trees, they're the university trees.
Yeah.
They're the ones behind the library, for instance.
Yeah.
Those are, I think, all planted by the university. The ones along the bike path, they're certainly our trees, and we would appreciate some mulching on those, I think. The other thing that I think you noted was down at the east end, we've had a number of problems with the oaks then. I've never understood this as to why they tend to blow or twist or do whatever they do. They're not the same type of oak, but the ones
The red
planted
oaks, it looks
further
like.
along, yes, the red
Yeah.
oaks have done this particularly. Even some of the bur oaks have done a little bit of that on the downside of the slope as well.
They, by and large, though, I thought the bur oaks were doing
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the red oaks.
Yeah, there was quite a few bur oaks that
Yeah.
were nice.
Yeah, and then as you go along the lindens have certainly been attacked by the Japanese beetles, but I don't know what we can do about that.
They've also been attacked by lawnmowers and weed whips quite substantially.
Yes, getting mulch around them would really be
Yeah.
a super service if you were able to do that.
Yeah.
I should say that Mr. St. War is an arborist, right? You are you have a tree service, so this is a professional offering.
In terms of the university, maybe the thing to talk is Susan
Calhoun.
Calhoun, yeah.
I actually copied her and Mark Whitney as well, just to kind of give them, because I wasn't sure who owned those trees. But I think Michael and I, when we made that list, we did try to, in our own minds, prioritize. And it sounds like we're kind of on the same page, because I think, not to speak for you, but I know I thought that of all the trees that we should focus on first, it was the red oaks. You know, because they have thin bark, and you can see where the lawnmowers and just spin around them and kind of compact the soil at their base. So
Yeah.
you felt like, was that where you wanted to start too?
I was thinking by the, one thing, the soccer fields, well, half of those I wouldn't mulch because they're right under the power lines, so it's no point in taking care of them. But the ones on the other side, the sustainability festival's coming in there, and I think that would be good to get those, either those first or the ones up by the parking lot, the end of the bike trail would be the most benefit for, start on those. And also, there's quite a few trees with grapevines and whatnot growing up.
Yeah,
and
so they
strengthening
need to
those.
do some basic maintenance
So
around.
that would be pretty simple for somebody to go through and just cut those.
Yeah, I don't get as far down as that. I try and pull them off closer to the rec centre and so on when I'm walking along there.
Yeah.
But down the far end, we have had occasion to try and pull the vines off. But it's a job you just got to keep doing.
Yeah, this is a really
And the ones in the middle
generous.
behind Lowe's, I'm not sure what we're going to do with that lot.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because they're actually fairly small trees, those. They're Acer campestre.
Yeah.
What else was there?
Yeah,
There was
some arborvitaes and some
yeah,
spruce.
yeah,
and whatnot.
yeah,
That
I
would
think
be
we
at the
were-
very bottom of my list of what I would be
yeah,
wanting
yeah.
to take care
Yeah,
of.
at least interesting. Yeah, if you could maybe start with a sustainability festival area, so that would put a nice beginning and an easy spot to start with and show it off. That would be
Actually, if you're
wonderful.
going to do that, and you're doing it at the same time as Sustainability Festival, you may as well try doing a demonstration so people know what to do. It's a concept.
Oh, yeah,
There's an
that
idea.
would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to do that, fine.
Okay. You're the Okay.
Just want to quietly mulch.
Which we appreciate the offer. Yeah, really, it's nice.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah, thanks, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
That,
So yes, go ahead.
Yes,
Yes.
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 We will alert Parks and Recreation because
They need to know.
they need to know.
They'll think the neighbors are there or something.
Yeah.
Something that may be issues, I'll be using paper, newspaper. If I can afford Roundup, I'll be using Roundup.
No. Why don't we just pull the weeds away?
If somebody wants to do that, that'd work too. However,
I think that's something that's really not permitted in the city, is it?
No.
It's
I'll have to ask.
an EPA issue, is it not?
I don't know.
Like,
Oh, I think the city uses,
You think?
they use a
They do
lot
spraying.
stronger
Oh.
chemicals than Roundup.
And this isn't going to be a problem for
I
the
thought
trees?
that's what Ron Lucas had said at one time.
I've
Yeah, they
been
use some
living
heavy
in
duty
well, the
Genesis.
amount of Roundup I'd be using per tree would probably be less Roundup than would be used like per hamburger. You know? So I think it might be okay.
Oh, okay, go ahead, put some Big Macs on them too.
Yeah, I mean, I think again is, and you know this just from your work, keep it around the base of those thin bark trees. The good news is there wasn't a lot of, I mean, you could tell they'd been mulched before.
Yeah, they started
But
that
it would
way.
probably be a good idea to just kind of like deal with those weeds, otherwise they'll just come up through the,
Yeah.
The paper works good for that too. It gives it another,
Yeah.
6 months to a year of.
Yeah.
I can get you all the newspaper you want if you want to go that route.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go.
Yeah, that would be very effective.
And it will be green mulch I'll be using too, so fresh mulch.
So then that way the paper would be even better to use.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the green mulch just sucks the nitrogen out for the first couple, about 3 to 6 months. So. But then again, it's cost effective, so.
Well, and these are not new trees, so they've been in for several years. So I think the benefits outweigh the
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we will alert Parks and Rec.
Ron Lucas as well.
Yeah,
And who?
Ron Lucas.
Okay, yeah.
Ron Lucas, yes, thank you, good thought. Yeah, okay.
My two, rec director now is.
Rich
there are two,
Capitelli?
Ray Hazlett and Mayor Abel.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We're doing all the rec stuff now.
All right,
So that's who you contact.
very good.
If you send something to Kevin, I don't know where it goes.
Yeah. I thought it was Rich Campitelli, but thank you. It would just puzzle. Okay, we are, if there's nothing else, we're on to item 2, landscape ordinance issues. And we'll start with something that was trailing at the end of the last meeting, which was the Carpenter Street parking lot, and Ann Bonner had done a drawing for us on that. And I don't know if everybody got that in their email. It's a drawing that looks like that. Yes, you've got it. Let's see, I drove up the alley next to this and didn't really walk in the parking lot, but there was actually traffic driving over the curb and the empty spaces and the rocks into the parking lot.
So we've got
So-
an enforcement issue there, I think.
Yeah.
Steve, in terms of enforcing the requirement that they should have a
Control
barrier.
Vehicles is a police department function.
No, but in terms of design,
Yeah.
the ordinance says it should be designed to prevent vehicles encroaching on the trees.
I would have
There's a
thought that
curb
it
there.
was, yeah, I would have
There's a
thought
curb
it,
there, they're jumping a curb.
yeah.
6-inch curb.
Oh, okay.
that they're going through.
It was impressive. It was impressive.
Okay.
I should have said, but it is true. A large vehicle just went up over the curb across the empty space where there were no longer trees, and then down the other side of the curb and in the parking lot. So it's a rough area in terms of.
SUVs.
Yeah.
We love them.
Wasn't it?
It's all those commercials that show cars driving in the wilderness. You know?
Yeah. So there were
Athens, the wilderness.
It is. There are a total of 5 trees missing from the site. 9 of the 14 trees remain, and 8 of the 9 trees are in decline and have root suckers. They did not look good. So Anne has recommended planting 5 red oaks, pruning the suckers, and addressing the issue of this large gravel, can you call it gravel, rocks, and having some sort of ground cover. There are sites where she suggests putting the trees, and I think, let's see, there's Joan Kraniansky has given us some background information on this. There had been arborvitae along this site at one time in order to provide a screen between the parking lot and the residences next door. And those were things that had been required by the Athens City Code at the time to shield from view by a fence or vegetation at approximately 8 feet. And so there was indeed a combination of things at the site, trees and vitae or arborvitae, however it is.
Did I get this right, John?
Drawing?
The drawing? Okay, so you felt like that was the right number and everything.
Okay. So they need to come back into compliance then about replanting the trees that have disappeared or died.
And the buffer by the sound of it as well.
Steve, you want to comment on this? We
The,
need our code input.
That parking lot was approved by the Planning Commission and City Council as a, I don't know how it got this designation, but as a planned unit development when it was installed.
Yeah.
Started in 92, 93, about a year or so before I came to work. So it was in progress when I got here, so that's why I actually had to go back and do a little research on it too. And I was kind of surprised to find the mixed planting as one of the requirements, because it looked awfully thick, but that's what was required as part of the planned unit development approval. So, and I don't know that those arborvitae were ever planted. I don't think they were. Well, they were?
They died quickly.
Okay.
They can.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you would like for me to write a correction letter that says, take out all the big stone, do the mixed planting, and replace the pears with oaks, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go that, I mean, I think it'd start by replacing the ones that are missing.
I mean, it just seemed like that original approval seemed to me, in my opinion, just a lot of things going on in that little narrow strip. So, I mean, if you just want the trees put back, that's fine. If you want the interspersing arborvitae.
Yeah.
Also,
I think if the intent was originally to provide a visual buffer, then that's what those arborvitae would do, and if they were properly maintained, they would survive.
Would some of the small junipers
That's what I was
be
gonna say.
easier to maintain
Fine.
there?
Yeah.
Like a spreading juniper might do better with the shade, there might be less competition over time too. A juniper, maybe even taxus. Maybe
Mhm.
What about deer?
Well, I was gonna say, with the SUVs, they'll take care of the deer.
I think it's too far into town to really worry
Yeah, it
about
wouldn't
deer.
be a
Okay.
heavy deer.
I think there are some deer in that hollow further back,
Yes,
Congress, but
yeah,
I don't know
but
if they come that
at
far
that
forward.
point,
The Taxus would be really beautifully complement the trees, especially
Yes.
the shade trees as they grew. I mean, that might be a good compromise, if you guys are okay with
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
But I
That
think it's
sounds
important
good.
to fill, because the more space you fill, this is how we sell it to the.
you wouldn't have any layers. Everything that was originally approved, to me, just looked like, it's all straight up giant screen. There was no
Yeah.
layering going on.
Yeah, the
Like the
Taxus would do
Taxus
that.
would be more of what you're picturing, I think. It would be lower growing. The thing that we can use to sell this is that ultimately it would be a lot easier to maintain. The trees are going to do better if they got the protection of those shrubs underneath them. They're going to work together to retain moisture in the soil, and it'll be a much, not only more attractive, but I think it'll be more functional.
Yeah, the rocks probably put in there to try to hold back erosion. There's probably a lot of erosion going on because it's steep.
Yeah, it really is.
Well,
And,
maybe
but if
for-
you had the plantings, they'd do the same thing and probably do it even better because the roots would introduce water back into the soil rather than just letting it all run off. So, if you can just give me some give me a little note on what you recommend and replace,
I'm gonna write
the
some-
replacements.
Well,
I can do that.
Texas.
Yeah, that was what I was going to suggest.
I
that
think
we
that
send him a
sounds,
note to.
sounds good in many ways, but if the idea was to have a green barrier, and if that's important to the neighbors, I wonder how they would feel about the taxes,
I mean, we could get,
along with the trees.
Instead of what?
Well, it's better than what's there now. It provides
Oh,
more.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No. I mean, you were thinking instead of taxus, what would you have instead for the green barrier?
Well, something that would be taller, like the arborvitae
Oh, yeah.
or a tall juniper.
Well, the junipers could be taller,
Okay.
couldn't they?
like a
Yeah.
Kevlar
They're-
juniper kind of
Yeah,
thing?
yeah.
Would they do okay in the shade of a tree?
No, they
ultimately?
wouldn't.
Well, there's not going to be much
that-
shade for a while.
That's right.
I know, but
So let's say
But
some
the
sort of.
yew would certainly be longer lasting there.
Yeah.
We have one neighbor, I would like to hear her
Yes.
reaction to what I've said.
Joan,
Come
would
on
you
up,
like to
Johnny.
come up, please?
Pull up a chair.
Good choice.
Thanks, Steve.
Well, I'm familiar with what the junipers are, but I'm not sure I know what
A
it is.
yew shrub
Yew.
is a
Yew
common
trees.
name.
Oh,
Yew.
just a common yew shrub, okay.
Yeah.
And they could take all kinds of shapes depending
It's
on how
an
they're
interesting area. I don't imagine the pear trees are going to get very large.
No.
Pear trees don't. And what you're getting, because that's all open to the east, is in terms of getting too much shade, maybe with the oaks, but definitely not with the pear trees, is you're getting sun right down on that. So I don't think it's going to be a shade issue in the areas where the pear trees are now. With the oaks, I guess it depends. Oaks don't tend to branch out, they tend to grow straight and tall, so you're still going to get a lot of sun. So I don't think getting light would be an issue. I don't really recall that strip wasting away from water coming down there. That didn't seem to happen because it's set up high and
Yeah, if it's
not
got a
very
decent
wide.
curve, as Steve was saying, then
Right,
the water's
exactly.
going to move around it.
Well, as a member of the neighborhood, do you think it would be good to have something taller and evergreen rather than something mounded and evergreen?
I think something taller and thinner, because unless somebody's going to prune those, which they're not, they're going to hang out over the road and into the parking lot. So something that was,
Juniper, all the yew trees would do it. I mean,
yeah, I think that would be something,
'Cause
be
you
better.
Something 6 to 8 feet? I
The
mean,
one,
that
the one
would-
that's commonly sold, the yew that's commonly sold is, I forget which one it is. It tends to grow fairly vertically, I think.
Okay. I just need to, I'll throw out some cultivar
Yeah.
names that, maybe I should get your email too to make sure that I'm copying you on this.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's, let me give you her email. How about that? You've got, I was playing with my paper clips.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. It's a little, and I like little boxes too. So,
Oh, I'd be very pleased. All your suggestions are really welcome.
yeah.
And I think some oak trees would be lovely there.
Yeah.
So,
They break up all the concrete.
We're working on trees that do that, but they
No,
don't.
I mean, just you've got basically a road and you've got.
I think
this
he was
line of
talking
rocks.
visually rather
Visually.
than...
Visually, yes.
Not
Yes.
No, you know it's there for keeps, so. But its presence is important, that it gets its shield, and at least on the west side, on the east side. On the west side, it's supposed to have a fence, which is, I'll deal with Steve on that. So it was the compromise. It should have, it wasn't, I think I said 7 or 8 feet, but I was just rereading, I think it'd be at least 6 feet. And what they agreed to was a fence on the east side, and then this shrubbery and trees on the west side, because the neighbors were so irate about having it there, so that was.
Yeah.
We could do with a copy of whatever that is, so that we could write this thing.
would you like to have that back?
It's on there, is it?
Is that part of the PUD agreement? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Or the-
Yes, it was part of the PUD agreement. I can give you
Email
what
it
I
to
have over here if you want to look at this, because there's,
So I could then just put it in here with the minutes. And
Okay, and Ann will provide a list so that Steve can
Oh, that's just parking lot ordinance, right?
give this to the property owner.
was there any discussion on trees at the very entrance? Because there were supposed to be, were these considered as part of the trees, the 5?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like there probably were trees there.
There were, and then it just, and there were some arborvitae there, and then it just all turned into gravel, and then now it's gravel and trash, and, but, this is back far enough in terms of people are exiting.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's a sidewalk, so you could put a few trees here, and it is not gonna block either the alleyway or Carpenter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great planting
so
site.
in your list of 5, did you include those 2?
Yeah, they're
Okay.
included.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't put anything about the shrubs. I didn't know about those at the time, so yeah. So I'll try to maybe walk it off and come up with some numbers, or are the numbers already in the original plan?
I can show you a drawing.
Would you recommend different
The
species?
final plat that was approved by the
No,
planning
There's
commission.
only like 5 replacements, you know.
It's not that much of a distance.
I think it's more than 5.
10 feet.
I'm thinking 1, 2, 3. If you were including the 2 in the front, I think it's, what we have here.
Well, I thought that there were 5 just outright gone.
Right.
And then there were quite a few that were just really stunted.
Looking dead. I do have to say in their defense, one year they did come in and prune out all the suckers. And this has been here since '94, so within the 17-year, 13, whatever, they did one year come and prune out the suckers off the tree, so. And you can have this, that's the original, that was the approved plat.
Oh, they even have 2 trees.
Well, right,
Right
see,
that
it's,
side.
yes.
So 6,
Wow.
make that 6.
So did they have a fence on that as well, you say?
There is a fence, yes, a 6-foot fence.
Right here?
And I remember when it was there, no, the fence is on this end,
It's over by Patrick Rose's house.
right,
The next one over.
on the east side, and it came down. It's like totally gone, it needs to come back up too.
Oh, fence on this side of the parking lot, okay, and the trees are on this side. Yeah, see, look at that.
Arborvitae hedge between Cleveland Select trees.
True.
There's Adam's crab apples on the front, yeah, but we just put one large shade tree in place of those.
That'd be
those
cheaper
crab apples,
and-
yeah. Give us some shade.
And give some shade.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably make
Show it to Emily.
that section of Carpenter look really nice too.
It would.
Right next to Johnny Appleseed Park.
Yeah,
It's looking 50 these days.
that's right, yeah. Between the-
You did some of that, I know.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
beautiful.
Oh, I just planted grass. And we got Andy Stone to put the rocks there so that somebody would quit running in with curves.
Seems to be a sport.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Joan. I
Well,
think
thank
this is
you,
going
I'm
to-
so pleased. Thank you very much for all your hard work, and
Well, it's most of it. Anne should get most of the credit here, I'm afraid.
thank you, Ann. So
Let's
Ann
wait
has a
let's wait until we
copy.
get the trees in the ground, okay?
True, a
That's
lot
for
of
the
it.
record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can keep that.
Keep trying to
That
give
came
your
out,
stuff
cut
away.
off his file, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all very
Thank you,
much.
John.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next order of business is not going to be Taco Bell. Oh, Steve,
You did have something else on.
sorry. Thank you.
Ms. Kornansky and I have been talking back and forth about this over some time, and there's also, this may not really matter to you, but it's just a piece of information related to the parking lot in that area right there. There's a lot of gravel in that alley. It's an old brick alley with lots of potholes and things in it, and some of the rocks that were there around the trees have come out into the alley. Some gravel has come out of a parking lot that's a little further at the head of the alley. But I did find out today that the street department has been filling the potholes with gravel. So they can't pave over, they don't want to pave over the brick, but they don't have time or money to make it level. So what they're doing to keep it passable is to put stone on it. So a lot of the stone is coming from the street department to maintain the alley.
Yeah.
Where's the nearest storm sewer on that? Because isn't that going to, it's got a slope. I know it comes out onto Carpenter occasionally, so
It's
wouldn't
right at the
be,
corner.
so wouldn't we be worried about the gravel getting into the storm
It's
sewers?
piled up right in front of it.
Okay. Maybe we ought to-
So I did bring it to Ron Lucas's attention because I wondered where all this gravel was coming from. And so I suppose that I could let Ron know that he needs to keep the gravel, keep the city gravel out of the city catch basin.
I just wondered how this is working. I don't think we gravel many roads in town, that's all.
But we gravel, there's a lot of gravel on
Those
alleys.
guys first.
Okay.
And in this case,
technically an
it's,
alley? then?
I'm not sure if it's identified as a street or an alley. It only has a 10 or 12-foot width.
Okay.
Seems to be an approach to a driveway, going up to a rental at the back.
I know it curves around to Mound eventually, but I don't think it's a,
Yeah, I think
I
it
never
does
think it was
come
a
out.
through street.
Yeah, when I got here, it's actually platted as a through street alley, through thoroughfare, if you want to call it that. when I came to work, actually, people were pulling off Mound Street in the house that's on Mound. They were using that as their driveway. And nobody cared because nobody was using the alley.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how out of the way it was at the time. But it was identified as being a public thoroughfare, and the people on Mound were told to clear their car off
Yeah.
the alley. And so, where it was closed before, essentially now it's open. But street department, that's what they're doing to maintain the surface, because it is a passable, they have to keep it passable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll let Ron know that too, that a lot of that gravel, whoever it belongs to, is getting down the catch basin.
Moving, downhill.
With the water.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Let's see, we have several things coming up on the landscape ordinance issues, but a couple of the parties have not attended, so I think that we should do the courtesy of having the long-suffering souls who have already been sitting through quite a bit here start. And University Estates, Lance Rep has something for us.
I don't know what the easiest way to do this is.
You want to get it up there closer?
Yeah, maybe put something on a chair, yeah, and then,
Or two chairs.
Yep, that'll do.
Just as I don't know if we'll need this, but
if you could identify yourself for the
Okay.
loud microphone, please.
my name is Lance Rupp. I'm with University Estates, and I've got three projects for sure coming for you. One is a plating issue, so I guess that wouldn't be part of your thing. I've met with the city administration at a staff meeting and went through everything that we're trying to do. I had a few members of the tree commission come out and kind of gave you a tour of the areas. And then today I presented a pre-final PUD to the planning commission. And because we got the 4 projects going on, I felt it was better if I came before the planning commission, kind of gave them most of my speech so that they had 30 days to help me interact with the city and any questions they had. So I was kind of doing that with the same with you guys, and that's why I asked them that last week. Because of what I'm trying to do and the way your meetings are monthly, it's hard to always time everything, and I got the same problem with disabilities. But the projects that I wanted to talk to you about tonight are,
Yeah.
we got a little strip center that's going right here, phase 2 of the High Point Village, an apartment complex that's going in right there, and the residential, second phase of residential going right there. So what I'm trying to do is, I've got till September 26th to get my final presentation to Steve Pearson, which is mandatory to make the October 4th Planning Commission. So I need to keep everything moving, then it goes on to council. And the reason, just real quick, I know I don't have much time here, is that these 4 projects all tie together in terms of moving earth and site preparation. And for me to keep my employees working, which we got over 100 now, all winter long, it's important that we get this thing through the system, because we can do a lot of things in the winter, sanitary and water and some earth moving, and as long as the ground freezes. So that's kind of the other thing, and obviously it's cost effective to do 4 projects at once too when you're doing dirt work. And the biggest thing is we want to try to get this earthwork done so that we don't disturb our residents any more than we have to. The first project that I'll talk about is High Point Village, which is phase 2. Let me get these real quick.
Now they're used to it.
I might make it easier so you see. This is just the extension of the Phase 1. The clubhouse area is right here. Okay, and so we're coming out, we've changed the configuration a little bit from, that's several years old there. Instead of a cul-de-sac going out this way, we'll have a little loop road. So I've tried to take what you've told me from Phase 1 when we talked about it and tried to, the best I could, apply it to here. I also learned that the engineers and architects in Columbus and stuff don't see things the same way we see them down here, especially your group. So I told them don't even bother to put a legend on there of what the trees are, that we will decide what the trees are. And I think that's a better program. Because I found, just like in my center aisle going up, and you guys noticed it when you were out there, that's probably the wrong tree we put there. And it's going to cost us money. And we're going to have to take them out of there and redo them. So that's kind of the theme I'm going to take through all of this today. So I guess what I'm asking you guys is there's the plan that, it doesn't show all the little landscaping around the houses, the individual shrubs and all that stuff we didn't put on there. But if you can help us identify what particular trees should be where, we tried to do the spacing the best we could. That's probably more than 30 feet there, or less than 30 feet along the street.
Yeah, 1 inch is 3 feet.
So,
Yeah, because we really like to get a large shade tree every 30 feet along the road. We know you can't do that with these big driveways because it just isn't feasible to do that now. And we do like to see at least one tree per unit for each of the the units that we've got here. So these are 1, 2, 3. Are these 4 unit? They're 4 units, yeah. So we'd expect 4 large shade trees.
These are supposed to be 30 feet. I don't know if it.
They look as if they're about
Then
an inch
I
apart.
told them, let's try to add some clusters.
Yeah.
Because you've got shade.
Well,
sun coming
again, it'd be
in.
nice just visually, I think, if a large shade tree can get in these corners to help frame the buildings and so on. And that a large shade tree here could replace maybe one right on the corner there, which might be a bit of a nuisance when people are trying to come out of those driveways.
Well, now, are these large shade trees?
I think that's up to us.
He's asking us, yeah.
He's asking us, and we're saying
It
yes.
should be.
Yeah, it ought to be.
I
This
think
is in the higher elevation area.
I would like to see large shade trees. My only concern is I think something has to be fairly, would have to be 5 foot off the ground before it starts to.
Well, large shade trees, when they're planted, should be clear of branches to 6 feet anyway.
Good
I mean,
nursery stock.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy a 2-inch caliper, you're going to be buying something that's probably 9 to 12 feet tall, and it'll be clear of branches at 6
Already.
feet.
That was
If you
my
buy,
only concern of people backing out
Yeah.
Right.
and having tree coverage.
No, that's another reason for putting large shade trees along here, that they don't obscure the sightlines.
These are curbs, not sidewalks, I have to say.
No, those are sidewalks.
These are sidewalks, okay, so you have to have clearance for the sidewalks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and to be, and we like the trees to be planted at the back of the sidewalk rather than between the sidewalk and the road, and I think
Looks like
that
that's what
looks
he's
like
doing.
what you're
Yes.
doing,
Yeah.
which is nice.
But if these are large shade trees, you're not going to be able to get
No, there won't,
as many in a
there
cluster
won't be a
here.
cluster of them.
Right.
Shall we give him a menu of shade trees for streets? And that would provide him
We can
some
do that.
shopping possibilities.
Yeah,
We'll make a
that
note.
would help. And after you see the next couple, if there's a variance between projects, in
Yeah.
other words, one tree might be good for another one.
Mm-hmm.
And
So this is High Point Village, isn't it? This
Phase
one?
2.
Yeah.
Phase 2.
Well, it seems to me that it might be good to have a distinctive combination of trees in each
Yeah.
area, but some overlap from one area to another so that you have a connection.
That'd be a nice design feature. Yeah. Okay.
I was always especially like going up our center island, I was always worried about if you plant 12 trees in a row, you know, sooner or later one of them or two of them is going to die, and then you've got this real nice, even, nice, the old Louisiana driveway going out through there. Now you're missing 2 trees,
Yeah.
and you got to
The
start.
missing tooth complex. We call that the missing tooth.
Yeah, and it,
I
Probably
think though,
back to
if you
black.
have.
Yeah, it's not a whole lot.
If you have trees fairly close together, won't another tree seem to fill in the area faster than if they're more widely spaced?
well, yeah, the opening wouldn't stand out.
Not for very long, anyway, yeah.
Should we try something like 3 or 5 species for this particular area to mix up and give them a menu? And now we're looking at Emily and Ann.
Well, it's pretty, the soil's gonna be really poor, right? I'm assuming
Yes.
this is where it's pretty bare right now. So they have to be tough trees. You know, some of the oaks are definitely one that, you know, and again, it's probably a good idea to mix them up a little bit so that you don't create that line, that uniformity in case you do lose some.
Now, we do plan on putting topsoil, but we put topsoil in the center islands too.
It's the compaction too.
Yes.
Just, you know, when you drive over with the heavy
The,
equipment.
Other than the Japanese beetles, the lindens have been very good for us in 4 sites.
Yeah, especially, there's a lindens, American linden, or there's couple cultivars or variety of linden that are good. You know, bur oak has done really wood, that thick bark.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite, thornless honey locust. I mean,
A suggestion list would be,
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
writing them down.
okay.
You'll get them.
For the yard, clusters of evergreens around the buildings. I think it would be worthwhile to consider either, you know, what they call Serbian spruce and Norway spruce, and I know it's overplanted, but white pine, it's a really tough tree, and that kind of would give people, like, you know, when they're looking out their windows, they're not looking at the other buildings. You know, you can arrange them in a way that.
Well, that's where these that are grouped close to the building, they could be replaced with white pine or
Okay.
that Serbian pine.
Serbian spruce is a good. It's not as big. It's a tidier spruce.
That's right.
Also, you know, red cedar. I mean, people consider it a little bit of a dog, but it's
Between the buildings.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Yeah.
wanted to do clusters of red cedars, do you know that plant? It's kind of a light blue, but it's a really tough.
Native, you see it, fields, edge of the road.
But speaking of natives, the Virginia pine will be a good another one.
Yeah,
for this
if you could get
area.
it, put it. I mean, because again, and we're trying to give you species that
Yeah.
will thrive over time. You know, so that in 20 years we're not writing you a letter saying, "That is
Please.
that guy." You know?
that's the key to it too. I mean, obviously, all this stuff costs money, but
Yeah.
to do it twice costs.
Twice as much. Yes.
And if it doesn't serve the purpose in the
Yeah.
meantime, you're really lost, so.
Dave, I've got the feeling you were thinking
Yeah, I was almost wondering about in the clusters here, a large shade tree and then flowering shrubs.
Okay.
Redbud, dogwood kind of situation.
Okay,
I've made a note.
got that?
And the red buds are pretty tough
Mm-hmm.
too. Except I think you said that sometimes the larger ones don't transplant all that well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, no matter what you plant, you're gonna have to make maintenance of the landscape, or at least establishment of the landscape, part of your investment. So that means trying to work with the contractors not to compact those places to concrete, you know, and
We're
having
actually
a.
doing the motion around and stuff now, and we've tried a couple of landscape companies and found out that
Drawing 230 feet.
we've got enough skilled people that,
That's really what they do.
you know.
You can do it, yeah.
The key's the
Don't
soil.
just dig a hole and put the roots down. You gotta go way out here and deep. And
Yeah.
So we're learning that.
And compost and mulch, those are really important parts. Compost is good to mix in with the soil a little bit when you backfill the tree. I mean, since you're doing it yourself, it is, you know, they say $5 plant, $50 hole. So it's really worth your time.
The second part is the residential phase 2. There's 70 by 150 foot lots. This drawing doesn't really do it justice because this is basically mostly all woods. And they didn't color in that, so really all we need to do is, I think, is plant the trees that are on the road.
Mhm.
And then each house will have its own, you know,
Mhm.
stuff. But the tree line is probably midway in the houses right there.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
So that's all trees all around that.
Yeah. So the requirement there would be that there will be a tree every 30 feet,
Yeah.
basically, on both sides of the road.
And that's basically, if those are 70-foot lots, it looks like we have 2 trees in the
Yeah.
lot, so.
Are you gonna plant the trees before they build the houses?
you know,
Okay, yeah, do that last.
Yeah,
That's the key.
Yeah, that's smart.
because
Okay.
we want one side of the road and the other water lines have to go down through and electric and all that stuff, so you gotta get all that stuff in there before you.
And you'll be burying all your cables presumably as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's all-
Yeah.
What's the topography of this site? Is it flat or is there some, I
Uh,
kind of see the
actually,
topo lines over
If you
there.
just look at the houses,
Mm-hmm.
that's all pretty flat. And then most of the backyards taper down. This is a deep
Oh, low in
valley here and a
between.
deep valley here.
Okay. So it's pretty flat where
It's
the
all
trees
wood.
are all gone, yeah.
And these are what they're called ephemeral streams that are protected.
Mm-hmm.
And we have quite a few on this. So you have a 25-foot buffer that you can't,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can walk through them and do anything, but you can't
Build,
the
yeah.
building shed up or cut trees down.
It sounds like you probably are not going to have to do a lot of grading here in this area, except for the streets.
Yeah, and it's actually, because it's a fairly good tabletop before it goes down, there's not too much, in fact, I don't think we haul any dirt out of here. I mean, it's just moved around a little bit to.
Probably would be easier to get the trees started there than some of the other areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Okay. Give a list again.
Okay, this we'll get a separate
List
Yeah.
for this
mix
one, yeah.
for this one. This will be phase 2 residential.
And the next one is apartment project here. This will be done in 3 phases. This is the first phase with the pool, and then this will be the second phase, and then this will be the third phase. This is the Greenview Lane. It'll remain a gravel road until we get all the earthwork done on this site and the 2 up front. And then by the time we're ready to construct these buildings, then we'll have to go back and blacktop that. So again, with this plan, we pretty much,
This is the highest point of the site, isn't it? I seem to remember.
it's not the highest point, but it's
It's one of the
Yeah,
most
where is it?
open, though.
open.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. So it's a fairly
Yeah.
tough site, this one, I think.
right.
The trees.
Especially this one right here.
Yeah.
This
Mhm.
one's still pretty tree covered here,
Yeah.
except for this little
Yeah.
spot right in here.
Okay.
This is, a lot of dirt comes out of there.
Yeah. So the phase 1 and the pool are what you're dealing with now.
Well, I'm going through for approval on everything.
On the whole thing?
But that's the order we will do
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Tried to use the same concept here. Put as many trees as we could. The thing that, when I tried to do this over the phone, tell them to remind them that this is all green space here.
Mhm.
This is all trees, this is all trees, all this boundary around here is trees. This is not, this is that where you come up the hill and you see that big thing, so we'll have to do some.
Yeah.
So how far back is the tree line here? Or that you're gonna leave?
I can't tell, I remember what's above that.
So it's probably like 100 foot from the,
Yeah, it's this area right here,
okay.
and it goes down, that's all trees. And,
But that'll get, I mean, during the construction process, that's,
Well, you're
mean-
considering that a buffer, I think he's.
oh,
Yeah,
that'll be the
yeah.
construction limits do
Right.
not
Yeah.
go into the
Oh,
woods.
yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah, we'll set up silt fence and stuff probably just right outside the building as soon
Oh,
as we
good.
get the pad at the right level.
Again, what I try to do here is tell them, you know, let's put as many trees as we can, cluster them, you know, like here's a basketball court, you know. Because of the size of the map, it's very tough to do your individual landscaping around the building and have it show up. But to my knowledge, I think we've tried to, you know, cover all the bases.
This, I think when we were here before, when we visited it, we were saying that this might be a good place to really work with native, because it's so open, exposed, and difficult.
Yeah, it might be interesting to see what is
Yeah.
growing back there.
You know, these are
Hackberries or something.
these are three-story buildings, so my thinking is we want trees that go up
Yes.
tall.
Are they all three-story buildings, or just those down that end there?
Most of them are 3 stories. Some will be, excuse me, I'm Don Linder, I'll introduce myself. I'll be working with Lance on this project some also, and
Don has some nursery background.
a little bit. Some will be walkouts, so there'll be actually 4 stories on one side, and the back side of the building will be 3 stories. I think the concept here is, of course, trying to surround the buildings with vegetation and, you know, kind of picture frame them. And what I would like to suggest on this project is that we work closely with the Shade Tree Commission to actually develop the tree species that we want to use here. And maybe even create a collaborative and cooperative agreement between development and you guys to see if that works. Now that puts a little bit of a burden on you all to help us through that process, but it also gives you the good input and maybe creates some standards that can be used later on in other projects. So a little bit of work may go a long way from collaboration.
Well, I think we sometimes spend a lot of time trying to suggest changes for
And-
things that do not look very good so
Right.
far as the species.
So why not work in the beginning to say, well, okay, let's work together on this within financial limits. You know, on this project, we're going to try to work with 2.5-inch caliper trees, and most of it. So, you know, we're going to try to
it's a big
increase
area.
that to get some larger vegetation going. Though there are some limits, and there may be some consolidation considerations that are going to have to occur in the parking areas.
Well, you know, you can see that already because
Right.
you're not actually conforming to the 10 space things, but that's something that again we've allowed consolidations around that one. I mean, my initial reaction to this is, I think this is what you need for the Planning Commission, is that we should be able to give preliminary approval of this one, certainly, and of the other two, in what we're seeing here, because what we're seeing is, you know, trees planted at the right sort of intervals, at the right sort of densities.
Covering all
to-
the areas.
To match the
yeah.
sites, and, you know, we can work on the details later on. We don't have to-
And even make commitments to say that some consideration for consolidation would occur to be able to satisfy the Shade
Yeah.
Tree Commission.
Yeah.
And here, we're actually trying to create a waterfall here out of a water detention
Yeah.
area. We don't know if we can do that yet. It's a topography issue, and create some nice details.
Yeah, I mean, the only obvious hole I can see at the moment is over here, where
Right.
there's no trees.
But
on the
that,
edge.
actually, that's a non-disturbed area, which our landscape architects didn't, they
Okay.
were so
Right.
rushed.
It is native
If
woodland.
you've got
Yeah.
native trees there,
Right.
that's fine. We can.
So-
Yeah.
We would
That's
just
this
use
area
those.
right here.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
And that's the same, actually, here. Some of this is going to be preserved, and
Down here.
though that'll come in the next drawings.
Yeah.
You know, this was a very preliminary shot at it.
The only thing I might add, just back to what you said about using the large caliber trees, of course, within the parameters, you know, of the code, the smaller the tree, usually the better they adapt to the site over time, as
Sure.
long as they don't get whacked by the weed
Right.
whippers and stuff. So, you know, 2.5-inch caliber tree, you're getting a tree that's,
Good size.
yeah, takes 2 men to handle it, and a big hole. So I'd encourage you to maybe look
Drop
at
down a little bit.
even with especially with the evergreens that are out,
Right.
you know, that are in the out of the way places. You might get more bang for your buck. But
Right.
without making sure that they're not little dinky things that don't,
Well, yeah, but when you get to planting them along the roadway, you really have to start thinking about the larger ones, so you get this clearance. But then you're dealing with the deciduous trees rather than the evergreens.
And I don't want to speak for other developments at the University of State site, but what I'd like to see on this is that if we're doing phase one, again, trying to create some standards there and work with you on kind of the raw sites with a commitment that we make that we're going to provide the trees and the efforts to comply with your ordinances.
Since this is going to be a long-term project, and you're talking hundreds and hundreds of trees, I mean, right? You might want to go investigate like wholesale nurseries in Columbus and buy them ahead of time, or at least put them on contract.
Well, I think that's what University of States is going to be doing as their own entity, aren't you?
That's one of our plans.
Start your own nursery?
Yeah.
But
You'll start your own nursery.
don't know.
Well, there's thousands of trees potentially that they need to have their own nursery license.
Yeah, that's a lot of work though. I mean, if you're going to grow a product that you really want to frame your buildings with.
Actually, though, we're getting off the subject. I know down in the bottom where we're putting the golf course and the maintenance facility and stuff, we've saved an area back there that we're going to make a nursery. So we just got thinking, if we're going to grow trees for golf course and all that, then why aren't we doing it for the whole project? And we have our own, because that's what happened to me on the Center Island. I bought those trees and they had to bed them in because we didn't get the pavement down at the proper time, so they sat an extra year already bedded in, and then we moved them again, so they were moved 3 times within a 2.5 year span, so that they were behind the 8 ball to start with.
I think there are deals though that you can make with some of the big wholesalers, and you might be able to hold them on contract, or even say you're not going to need some for a while, because the commission will probably require a lot of diversity that might be hard to find, especially if you keep responding, reacting, and doing it piece by piece. Nursery production is a really hard thing. There's a reason why. I mean, people don't get rich doing it, and it's hard to grow a tree to make it look like what you want.
One of the things we did with I think it was Rudy Baumgartel with the bike path was that he stored those trees at his nursery for the best part of a year. I think they were actually balled and burlapped and stored that way.
Just had mulched.
And we had very good success overall in
The bur oaks?
and the red oaks. As well.
Okay.
The ones that are tipping?
Yeah, the ones that
Yeah, I don't know. So that might be. I mean, I would say what sometimes they'll do is they'll hold them in the nursery.
Yeah.
But you got them ahead of time, and you're going to have trouble finding the numbers you need and the species that you want. I think is going to be.
Especially on this project. The other two,
This is probably the most challenging of the.
Don, did you have any particular trees you had in mind for this?
No, not in particular. I think I'd like to see how the site progresses, to tell you the truth, and that's what I'm kind of recommending. We work together.
Has there been any removal yet?
Not yet.
Okay, so it's.
There's been, what has been done previously.
That phase 1 area there is pretty well.
Yeah, there's hardly anything on there.
That's clear.
Yeah, when we went up before, it was the sort of blasted heath image. It was, that's why that was the picture I had of this. That it was going to be a difficult site to get stuff growing in. That's why I think natives are the way to do it.
It's in our intent when there's separation between this, which would be an R3 and R1, that we create a physical vegetative barrier there. So it would be a multi-layered barrier. So there's a disconnection between the two.
Well, also, part of our overall
Has a
program
50-foot.
has a 50-foot walkway. I think I've discussed that with you before.
Right.
Find one. There's one there. There's one going across there.
Paved or
No.
just little paths?
It's just going to be left woods, and wherever you buy a piece of property on this site, you'll be able to interconnect and walk the whole site without ever touching anybody else's property. Okay, as far as going in and making trails, we've had a lot of ideas about that, and it's my feeling is, in this 50-foot walkway through here, just leave it trees. People will make their own trails.
Yeah. Yeah, the
You
path
don't
of
want a
least
path, you want a trail.
So you're basically just clearing some brush out from
We might go through there
underneath
with
the trees.
and
Yeah.
with a bobcat and with a, what do you call it? Not a mulcher, but just take some of the mulch for or whatever, stuff like that out of there, but not touch the trees.
Well,
And then,
we've got one
Number
last
4.
piece.
Yeah, one last piece.
Thanks, Don.
I brought this one just because this, you're familiar with this site. This was Grand Vista Village is up here that we approved a couple of months ago. But this is the strip center down where my office sits. And we've sat out and discussed this. This is 682, this is an embankment coming up, and this building will be at the height that my office is now. So we were real concerned that we wanted some trees across here, and that's what we discussed out there. You know, do we want solid trees, or do we want trees that are up that you can see through to see the businesses here, or just so many trees? So that's a kind of a feel thing that I think we're going to have to, once again, as a group, offer some input when it comes time to,
What's the distance between the parking lot and the road here?
there's 60 foot of right of way and probably another 20 or 25
Pretty
foot.
big area. Yeah.
And that's
it's
a-
a rather steep slope.
That
Yeah.
is steep,
Very steep.
okay.
From this tree
Yeah, I can picture
down,
that.
it's, I mean, we mow it, but it's still fairly steep.
So in other words, almost any tree you plant there, you're going to be able to see from the roadway looking up. You'll be able to see
Right.
under the trees to where that building
Right,
is. So you almost don't
because
have to
of the
worry about
slope,
it
yeah.
being a barrier unless you use evergreens or something that come down to the ground.
Right.
I think two things we're trying to do is obviously make it look pretty, but the other thing is, you know, the sun goes around this way.
Yeah.
So that's going to shade
It's the hottest
Mhm.
spot
Yeah.
of the parking
Yeah.
lot.
parking lot.
Yeah, well, that's why it'd be nice to get some deciduous trees, large ones along there,
Mhm.
and then maybe intersperse it with some evergreens of some
Mhm.
sort to
frame
break it
it,
up in the
maybe.
winter.
Yes.
I mean, because that's the one thing that we've said is missing around here is some evergreen
Evergreens,
plantings.
mhm.
And you don't
London
need
plane
many.
tree is would be a good parking
Oh,
lot
that'd be
tree.
A what?
London plane tree. It's like a sycamore,
sycamore.
but we don't.
It's more polite.
Yeah, it's smaller and it's they
It's
used them a lot
classier.
in the night. Well, you see them around the malls, like Northland Mall, what used to be Northland Mall. A lot of the older developments, they were very popular in the 90s, the 80s and 90s. They're a really good tree. It's I don't know why they're not popular now. It's just that you know.
It's fashionable.
Yeah, but they're.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're
And they would tolerate planting in these areas, I think.
Yeah, they're pretty long
in the
ones.
islands and so on into the parking lot where you will have a lot of heat there to deal with. But I think
They're
they
nice too because they have the white bark. Like if you want more of a uniform look in front of your commercial area,
They
they
actually-
do have that kind of.
They also go very well with the evergreens because of the white and the green in the
They
winter.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
we'll develop some menus.
Yes.
And
Yep.
If I should get you information on nurseries because I like of how to get seedlings and liners and I can.
Okay.
If,
I'm going to give you my business card with my email on it.
Okay.
It's the easiest way to.
And is our commissioners comfortable with giving a preliminary approval with
I
this
think so, yeah.
Yeah, I would.
arrangement?
Mhm.
Can we keep
Yeah,
copies of
you
these?
can have those. I didn't make an extra one of the strips.
Okay.
Okay. That's very, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Lance
thank
Rep.
you. And we didn't find out whose hat that was, huh?
No, I've left it at the Bill Bias's chair there on the city council for him to solve.
I have a feeling it must have been the mayor, because he was out shortly after you guys.
Well, thank you, Don, also.
Okay, thank you, and thanks
Yep.
for all your help.
See you later.
Okay, so where are we
Well,
on the agenda?
we are, yeah, and Steve is,
Is it time for the nap?
time for our nap. It's a long session. We have, let's see, there's Beaumont Green and Taco Bell, and we don't have representatives here, and we have some, let's see, maybe we should address the one that's proving most thorny first, which is Taco Bell. And this has to do with, there we go. See, we're a little thin on information here that really would be helpful. The Taco Bell site, he's done improved things in his landscaping. Have I hit all the microphones?
No, you did good.
Okay, so that's East State Street out there towards Steve. This is coming up to Hampton Inn here. This is the entry into Taco Bell. There's a steep hillside here curving around, and then there's about 50 feet of space here. There's a drive-through that goes back out this way, so people come in, drive through, pickup window here. There's an apartment building here. And Emily and I went and looked at the site, and the grading is very poor for putting any plants. It's very
Yeah, it's
steep,
very steep.
not much soil there at all, and the property lines, there probably were surveyor stakes there, but I think they're buried. Pardon me. In any event, we don't know where the property line is here, and that's a problem for being able to determine what to recommend about where to put an evergreen screen. There needs to be an evergreen screen, some sort of a screen between the apartment building and the business.
And he has, what is it, pin oaks along here?
Pin oaks are out
White
front,
oak.
Yeah.
and swamp white oak along
Okay,
here.
Okay, the swamp white oak would be planted under the
Power
power
lines.
lines.
Yeah, I suggested actually, after realising that we switch these red maples for the swamp white oaks and bring the swamp white oaks
Would you
further
think
out the
that
back.
the red maples would be low enough?
I think so.
Under those
Yeah,
power
those
lines?
are particularly high power lines, and they're off to
Okay.
one side. But it would have been nice again if
Although
as well as the property
it-
line, we have the high voltage lines on the.
There's
on the
50
things.
there's 50 feet here where there's no place to plant.
They are doing something about the lines they were today. I don't know whether Steve knows
I saw
anything.
the power company out there, they had a couple of high buckets out there. They've been out there for several days, and I'm not sure what. they're
Okay,
doing.
yeah.
I can get you a copy of the survey, which you'll be able to line up on the road back to the Hampton Inn,
Mhm.
and might take measuring with a wheel or something, but you'll be able to go over then and determine
Okay.
where that property line is
Yeah.
over against the apartments,
Yeah.
because that's what you're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean,
But,
I
but can
think-
you measure practically with a wheel an area that is
And
at
is
this
that the
angle?
role of the tree commission? I mean, isn't that the burden on the
Property
developer?
owner. Yeah.
No.
Are they open and doing business already?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, this is the young man who's
they
done
have 2
this.
seasons to do this in.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Okay.
But this is one of these problems of information, and we probably, before we even have legislation change to require people to present information a certain way, we may as well develop a policy statement for Steve's sanity and ours that simply says there shall be property lines, and he should have put the utility lines in
Right,
here.
we've talked about
Yeah.
that, and it works.
Yeah, bless you.
Yeah.
But if, so this is a plan with insufficient information, particularly at this corner. And we've asked Nick Carr's office, the water department, about what might be the implications if there's any problem with putting junipers at the base of the slope that runs north-south.
It didn't
down
appear
here.
to be. Did you see the answer that they gave back?
Yes.
It sounded like everything was around the basin at the bottom there. So as long as we keep clear of the
Clear.
basin, we should be okay, and that's fine because you really want
Yeah.
you want the buffering to come further back, I think.
Assuming
Yeah,
it's on
this-
their property.
This tree here is probably the first where you start
It
buffering.
seemed to me that for actually buffering the apartments, it really would work better to have the evergreens as close as possible to them.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would plant the trees, the large, the shade trees at the top of the slope.
Yes.
That keeps them further away from the cables.
Yes.
And then put the evergreens at the foot of
Yes,
the slope.
yes.
And that's again why I was thinking of those Cypress leylandii types that really grow high.
I talked with someone recently, and apparently some of them did very poorly in this last season.
Okay.
They used to be considered a plant for farther south, and I know some people have grown them satisfactorily for
Okay.
some years, but apparently this last winter really zapped some of them.
Okay. Anyway, a green barrier at the foot of the slope,
Yes.
I think, is the way to go. And if it,
I think-
something that will grow to quite a height, probably 12, 15 feet, if we could get it to grow that high.
I think probably some of the upright junipers
Mhm.
would be the best choice for that site.
Yeah, like the Kettleri.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good one.
What about Fairview? Is that, or,
I have to look in my book.
Okay.
I can't, I don't.
I'm not sure I've got
But
that
yeah, there's a
quite
lot
right.
that get some size on them. That would be pretty tough.
And there'd be plenty of sun for junipers at that spot.
Well, Emily and I, when we looked at the site, didn't think that there really was a planting place for the swamp white oaks at all, at least two of them down here. Wasn't that the sense? There's just, it goes straight down.
Yeah, right around the corner there is more planting space, but I think they would have to make planting wells.
Yes,
or
well, that
something
was
like
made
that.
in
Yeah, that
the
was a-
letter that I wrote to them.
Yep.
Okay.
that's
Right at the
true.
beginning, I told
Okay.
them that they had to put wells around these trees.
Okay,
So they've been told ahead of time that this
Okay.
is that will be needed. There's no way you could plant trees on some of these slopes without
no.
something like that.
Yeah. Mhm. And the power lines don't disturb you about these two?
I think if they're red maples,
He's
Okay,
saying to switch,
so- yeah,
switch the
okay.
bur
Yes.
oaks and red
All right.
maples.
yeah,
Okay,
switch
sorry.
a couple of them around so that they're
It's my nap time.
Yeah. yeah.
Well, I don't think we can do
But
much
these,
more with
but these are
this.
minor changes. I mean, basically, I think this is probably sufficient in terms of potential tree coverage, and we're trying to now deal with the details
Well,
of how you actually plant it.
yeah, but I think we still need to know where the line is.
Well, they need to know where it is.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
we don't need to know where it
And
is.
they need to plant as
Well-
close to that line as
Yes,
possible to get as
yeah,
close to
yeah.
the apartments, you know?
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
So that's not our worry.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if the property line goes beyond the valley, I think you just still plant it in
Okay,
in-
tree
in-
wells
in the
with
base.
evergreens as well as
I
for
think
the maples at the very top.
If the evergreens are on the slopes, yeah,
Okay.
they're going to need the tree
Okay.
wells. True.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be glad the process is over. And we figured that there was about a 50-foot
50
length
foot.
of line of junipers, about 10
And
junipers every 5
I was suggesting
feet.
about 10 in that space.
Okay, let's just draw them on here.
That's 11. If you want to be picky, but
That math professor or something, you know?
it's one of the things I had to do when I was in grade school. That was one of the classic questions you could get
What
caught
did
with.
you say about
If you've got a 50-foot space, you want to put trees at 5-foot intervals. That's
Start with one.
going to be one extra because you're going to
11, yeah, you
It's
start at
11.
the end. Yeah.
Well, no, because you want
Careful, Emily.
spaces. No, you don't want any exactly at one end. You want
Okay.
10 spaces with
Okay.
a tree in the center of each space.
Okay.
Now, it took me a
Yeah,
long
10
time.
spaces. I
But I
agree.
figured out
Yeah.
what I was doing.
Well, if you've got 10 spaces, you've got
Yes.
11 trees.
Things are deteriorating. Okay, we have to
Sorry.
settle this. We're going to switch some things around here. I will not relinquish this map until the minutes have got
Okay.
everything in place.
We'll
But
sort
we're-
it out later.
Yeah, and we have
Okay,
the
I want you to
junipers,
explain.
10 and a half.
10 and a half.
When you're
Let's
talking
say
about
10.
tree planting, you always round up, okay?
That's right.
That's
Give us a
true.
little more tree cover.
Yes.
Okay, well, and I think I will pass along the concerns that we raised from the gentleman in the water department. This isn't, this
I
is
think
the
he
low
answered. I
point.
think he answered the question
Yeah.
that we needed to have answered. That's all.
I
We were concerned that there might be utilities running up the hill from that point, and I think he said that there aren't.
Yeah, essentially, they're out over a little bit to the,
Well, there may be
East
other
around State
utilities,
Street.
but they're the problem of Taco Bell and the people who are going to be planting the trees.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, when they said they have to call oops,
Yeah.
I didn't mean if he implied that we had to
No,
find.
No, no, we
okay.
don't.
That's
Okay.
the-
That's not our
Yes,
problem.
yeah.
It's Taco Bell's problem, or the people planting their trees.
Okay, this is the Taco Bell everything.
Okay. Did you want me to? Or are
Do
you
you
gonna
want to
keep
see
it?
the map?
I don't need to.
Okay, it's mine.
Okay, that's fine.
And yours shortly, Steve. Want to be able to have something for writing. And now the next one is Beaumont Green, and Emily did an assessment of that. And Beaumont Green, let's see, we have a couple of,
This is the one on Della Drive.
this is on Della Drive. Let's see, and we have the old map here, where all these little pink dots represent black gum. They had a heck of a lot of them, so that was one of the problems. And they didn't have anything around perimeters, and you can
Well,
see.
was one of their drawings had lots of river birch.
I'm
didn't they?
sorry, you're- I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, river
Forgive me.
birch is what it is.
Yeah, this is the one we suggested, like bald cypress and
Yes.
black.
We had mentioned the
Yes,
Dawn Redwood also.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think they want the Dawn Redwood down in that wet area. They have one shown there down in the wet area.
Oh, okay.
And I think that should be two ball cypress instead
Okay.
of one ball cypress and one Dawn Redwood. And they also are showing some hedge maples. And I think you said that there had been some problems.
Yeah, that's
with-
it's such a
and-
small, short-lived
and-
tree.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good tree.
Those
Yeah.
are fairly close to the building. I was wondering
Oh.
if maybe the river birch would be small enough to use in the areas where they had been using the hedge maples.
Well, neither one are really a shade tree, so I mean, I suppose, I wouldn't have a problem with the hedge maple as an ornamental, but to fulfill the requirements of the code.
Well,
I-
this
qualify.
was just a few spots close to the building.
It probably wouldn't be a bad, hedge maple might work there. I mean,
Okay.
if they, or river birch, whichever.
But they're ornamental trees, more than anything else.
Yeah, the short, kind of short-lived.
So they put at the perimeter at the back where they're keeping the wetlands, let's see, the double A is the Dawn Redwood. There's two of those.
And I would suggest
And the black gums.
not having
That's,
those there. Yeah.
Well, that's-
That's right on.
There's-
recommend they
there-
go with taxodium there.
Well, they have one there, I think, and I think they should replace the Dawn Redwoods with, well, in that spot there, that area, there's one of the Dawn Redwood, one of the ball cypress, taxodium, one honey locust, and one Nyssa sylvatica, the black gum.
Are you going to be able to give a coherent
No.
recommendation?
Can you
I think we're
make
just
the changes
recommending
on that list?
Yeah.
they replace the one Dawn Redwood with
Okay.
a bald cypress, I think is the
Okay.
Yeah.
recommendation.
Okay.
Everything else
If that's
seems
fine,
fine,
Jenny.
honey locust would be well
Well,
there.
they have some Dawn Redwood, other places, which probably would be okay.
Okay.
So it would just be this place up here. It's AA.
Right here,
Yeah.
these two.
Oh, I
So-
guess it is two there. Okay. So
So that's
maybe you could mark that.
they're on the northern edge, aren't they?
Ball cypress.
Okay.
AC.
Okay.
That's the only change? Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Emily looked this over.
Yeah, that's old.
Yeah, excellent.
And, okay, that's the only change, and I'm going to do this on ours. This will go to Steve directly, since it's not much in the way of a change. got that in the
Yep, I got
minutes?
them to those about the door Redwood, yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Well,
That's-
I
is
think
it-
it would be good to look at the hedge maples and make sure that there are none of them that would be practical to replace with something larger.
Hmm.
Let's see.
Well, they're considering an ornamental on here. It's B.
B,
There's one here.
yes. Of course,
There's one
and
there.
that,
And
that
here's,
is in the middle of the parking area.
Mm-hmm.
And,
On the edge of the parking area is the other one. There's another one in the parking area or on the edge.
So one,
those two,
Why wouldn't they be large shade trees?
okay. Sorry, Steve, we need it back.
Oh, boy. What are your ideas for replacing?
Whatever they've got on that list, we'd just use the same things.
yeah,
But you've got the black gum there?
yes.
They'd work all right.
Yeah,
Parking lot
so-
area?
They're not gonna, I mean, they're presumably gonna have sterile
Right.
ones, aren't they? I mean,
Oh, not that. I don't think you have to worry about the seeds. It's just they're gonna
Worry about
just,
the
they're
site.
so slow growing. I mean,
Well, they also have the honey locust.
Yeah, that's already
yeah, but
there.
it's not a particularly
Shady.
That'd be a
Shady
nice
tree.
London
Of course, they
plane
got
tree
the
location, wouldn't
hill.
it?
what's that?
London plane tree would go well, but it's not on their list.
Well, I think we could suggest something that's not on their list, couldn't we?
Yeah. Well, they need to have a large shade tree, I think, for that one and that one. And what was there was another one here, wasn't there?
That's
Which
close
is
to a
awesome.
building, though.
That's, again, it's in the corner of the parking lot.
Yeah, but
What
there's
about ginkgos? Could
One
they
out.
do ginkgos there?
Yeah.
Ginkgo?
Oh, there's two of them, isn't
In the
there? There's
parking
one
lot.
there and one there. And they're
They
quite
do
a
better
distance
than
apart.
Blackham.
I mean, there's no reason why there couldn't be two
Oh,
shade
yeah.
trees
Blackham's
there.
what they got, the rec center that just,
How many of
They're
these
awfully
exocompesters
slow.
are there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't count them, it's just a.
Oh, it's given a
wait a
choice
minute, does-
of-
No, they don't.
What about Freeman Maple?
Yeah.
if they've
Yeah,
got that on the
the
list.
Freeman, yeah, let's replace the Acer Compester with the Acer Freeman Money.
Sure, yeah. Can you do that on yours? Just the hedge maples?
Yes.
Hey, they're all maples.
Oops, my spelling, it's
there you go. That's close
Manii,
enough.
isn't it? Somebody, oh, you're doing it,
It's
thank you.
Freeman.
Now,
And then two
is there
eyes on the end.
space at all of those spots? I know many of them would be. Is there space at all of those
I
spots?
think so.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to be there. They'll be close together. But
Yes.
I think it's what did you say? It was a.
It's okay. We got you covered.
I mean, Locust, wasn't it? Yeah. Is
Yeah,
in that corner there,
that's
which-
it.
It'll be all right with the Acer alongside it.
These are the two Acer
And
maples.
that's the,
Those are the
see,
two.
which is
yeah,
this? This is the
that were
western
hedge
corner?
maples.
Mhm.
And then this. Actually, I think there's another one right here.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Well,
Good.
I think,
Yeah, we've caused enough trouble.
I think we have.
Now, there's this 31, 33, 34 ferns on this.
Yes, it is. This is a eternal. Okay. I will hang on to this map and type up that. It's not fair to do that to you.
So you want this back?
Yeah, so we'll keep one, but I want to make sure that he's got something that can be communicated clearly. 31, 33, something for, and he's not here with a plan, so I don't know that we really need to present anything about the Fern Street property if there's no plan before us at this point.
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well
The
then,
commission members know what this is about. I can explain it to you.
Yeah, just briefly, I wouldn't. I walked by there today. I just couldn't tell where they were.
it's
Um,
interesting.
At the last Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, there was a request to take where Strawn Plumbing used to be, down in the alley, and demolish that building and build a three-story apartment building for 25 tenants, 5 units with 5 tenants each, parking underneath, and then some parking. There's some parking across the street that exists right now, and then that little purple house that's there, it gets torn down to create some more parking.
Okay.
The property lines are not, it's not square blocks, things are running at different angles, and there was never a presentation with the application for the use permit about parking lot landscaping. So there are 15 cars that are parking underneath the building.
Okay.
The purple house is going to disappear,
For more parking.
and it'll be kind of challenging to have enough room for the cars and for that. Plus, you've got 5 apartments that require 5 more trees. Now, the variances were for rear setback of 7 feet, where 40 feet's required, like back up against the hillside. And on each side, the building's going to be built right on the property line, where you were supposed to have 10 feet away from the property line. Those variances were granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals. So you have to find some place to put the 5 trees for the 5 apartments, plus the buffering for the new parking.
I think if he can park the cars underneath, he can put the trees on the roof.
Why
So-
did they let them build? It's clearly that there's too many units for the size of that lot. I mean, there should be, maybe instead of 15 units, there should be 12 or.
No, there were only
right?
5
Or
units.
5 units, but
Yeah.
maybe.
It's 1,250 square feet per unit is what the zoning code requires.
So they max that out to the
No.
limit.
Well, there's a lot more room there than that. Because the area is going to be where the house is, where the parking is. Actually, Mr. Stoffer owns Fern Street,
Yes, this is an interesting
And-
thing. He owns the alley.
so the site area,
Build.
believe it or not, far exceeds the minimum area requirements. It's only 1,250 square feet of lot area per unit.
So
And
why are
that's
they
not
building
very
against
much.
the property lines then? I don't
The
understand.
building as it exists right now essentially is built right at the property line in the back. It's pre-code construction. The zoning down there is B3, but if you abut an R3 zone, you have to meet the R3 rear setback, which is 40 feet. Well, to even get a building in there, they needed a variance. That 40 feet would have put the building in Fern Street.
And he could do that.
Now, we'd probably say that we reserve, what do they call that exactly?
Fire access.
It's a variation of eminent domain. But the board thought it was reasonable because actually they're pulling it off the property line a little further in the rear than the existing building is. And it's not going out any further. It's gone 2 stories up. Actually 3 stories, including the parking area. The variances were granted, so it's another one of these cases where which permit comes first? You know, denied building permit, Board of Zoning Appeals approval, now we need tree commission approval. Sometime in the future, we might need proposed Title 41 site plan review approval. Let's see, the project's not big enough, but in some circumstances, you need disabilities commission approval. We have all of these permits layered and layered and layered with no really clear description of where you go first, second, third, fourth. Even in this case, the first thing I sent was the tear down the little house and build a parking lot because the service safety director has to approve that access to the street. So there's another permit you usually don't think about. Service safety director has to look at it for traffic safety purposes too.
This is an area, let's see, it should be pointed out that they voted unanimously for this because it's an improvement of the area. The building's presently standing empty and not in great shape. Fern Street is also, if we were to go, what would this be, west down here to the kind of not quite Court Street end, would be where Kay Ledwith, was that her name?
Kate Ledwith built basically the same kind of a building, but
Hideous.
back in behind the buildings on Court Street. Her property came from Court Street all the way back. The construction, though, was off of Fern Street, but didn't front on Fern, accessed on Fern.
And she preserved what little green
Yeah.
there was there. There's some possibility here to pull parking spaces back slightly and have plantings along this area. And there is a little house here that's the Moneypenny rental office, perhaps, that has some interesting stuff in front of it, in truth. And so there's already the beginning of some green space in here.
Yeah,
So
there's-
given what's presently here, what they're doing will be kind of urban infill. And what is around it is there's a fraternity house right here. There's a duplex, I think it was Mr. Linder, one of the owners of a duplex that's right behind it.
Up on the hill?
I can't remember.
Up on State Street?
Up on State Street. And so he came in and supported this at the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Oh,
He didn't
that
have
was
somebody else.
Mr. Andrews.
Sorry. Okay. So, and then there's all these places here are rentals. This is Athens Book Center here. Let's see. This is McCody Properties. That's another rental. There's already a building right up against here that is a rental.
Will there be any room for trees around the perimeter of the building? I mean, I just
Not
think
at
of
the
the
back.
one.
At the back, it's sort of
it's a depressing. Who would want to? I mean, you guys got to admit, I walk Fern Alley. It's very stark and
it's
third world-ish. I mean,
yes, it is true, but it is.
There's
It's
no
close to
trees.
Court Street,
It's
though.
close to.
Oh, that. Oh.
Location.
So there's no room to make it just a little bit smaller, just to put even a couple trees around the, at least to frame the building just a little bit. I mean,
Well, there's parking lots right up against it already,
Yeah.
and so there are some spaces here. There is an existing parking lot here. If you flip this piece of paper over,
Okay.
there's a numbered thing that shows number of spaces, and there's a brick, kind of grassy, looks grassy, but it's really bricks under there parking.
where 10 is, where the number.
Yeah,
10
I think that's what that is. Walking around back there was really, well, you're right, it does have that quality. But there is the potential to have some plantings along this one perimeter. There is no particular space. There might be something right here. There is a silver maple, I think, perhaps, that's in the yard of that fraternity. That's the one green thing.
Yeah, there's
nearby.
no existing trees.
Yeah, that's
really,
it, this
other than
none
that,
too healthy
right.
looking thing over here. And from the frat house and the rentals, apparently, presently, the old abandoned Straughns is kind of a catch basin for beer cans, I think. They toss them down to the roof.
We'll obviously have to adapt on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to this meeting, and I'd seen the site before and just found it really,
Better.
well, pretty limited
Oh.
on what you could do.
Mhm.
And what seems to be possible is over here, I had hoped that there might be some parking spaces that could be given up, but those are actually already required by some deed restriction. They exist as a permanent part of some deed. They have to be here.
Mr. Stauffer has an apartment in his building that he owns on Court Street, where Carsey's Barber Shop is. There's an apartment in the basement. And there are 2 deed-restricted parking spaces at this site that have to go to the use on
Wow.
Court Street.
All the way to that site.
Yeah.
And I believe Mr. Stauffer actually is going to retain three parking spaces that exist down there because he doesn't want to go through a variance for a minor lot split, which requires a width of a lot at least 30 feet in that business zone. 2 parking spots, which are deed restricted, are only 20 feet wide, so he's going to take a third spot not to have to go for that subdivision variance. But additional parking, then, they had to show another parking spot on the far side of the building by the fraternity. And as Albie mentioned, there was discussion, too, about essentially trees versus parking. And even aside from the landscape issue, the zoning board asked questions about, can you reduce the size of this? And they didn't want to do it, and the board didn't require it. That was, you know,
So
basically the
it's
argument was,
approved.
yes, we could have less people and require less parking, but our building is not going to get any smaller. We could reduce the number of units or reduce the number of people, but the building size is going to stay the same.
Just because that was what they decided, or is there something, is there a foundation they're working from or something, or? I mean, I'm just trying to
It's
understand.
just the idea that what they've done is, if they have to reduce the number of people, they'll make it more accommodating for those tenants by having larger spaces. They'll use the same building, bigger bedroom, bigger living
Well,
room,
less
bigger
parking.
kitchen, so the building's not going to get smaller. That's not going to help. It might help on the parking, but it won't help on the building size. And so there was discussion, too, about if they reduced people, then parking would go down, and then there would possibly be spaces for trees, but then there was kind of a back and forth about, we have people, we have parking, and we have trees, and they're all in competition for this very limited space.
But even one parking space that was used for a tree would make such a difference there. A
But
19 by 9 space I would just yearn to see a little piece of green on that that stretch of
Yeah,
road.
even a tree or two would make a big difference.
It would actually make the not look so desolate there, but
Well, we haven't got a plan yet.
yeah.
So,
Yep.
can't do
We'll
anything
have to
with
see.
it yet.
But
Albie,
yeah,
were you saying something about possibly a strip somewhere?
up here, at this, which would be northern end, wouldn't it? So this is, Fern goes east-west.
Not the
And-
ideal site.
No.
It's kind of got tree, like brush and stuff on it. Is it on a slope kind of already, or no?
The grade changes, it's true. The building, let's see, the frat would be slightly higher, and then the apartments behind are higher yet. So in truth, this area comes down fairly substantially. There's a retaining wall, I think.
Yeah, I think there
It's
is. You're right.
probably some of the lowest catch basins in the uptown area. Everything
Yeah.
everything goes to here.
Right.
All the
Water,
memories of
trash,
that tree.
everything goes.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Right there.
can't let it go.
There is some historical speculation that the hill that is North Hill, where all the clay was mined out at one time, extended all the way down to about Fern Street, and there was perhaps a run along that area, and that it was slowly excavated and
Yeah.
back to the point where it is now.
The city storm tunnel, that's a 3-layer brick arch, 5 feet tall, about 2.5 feet wide, which probably was originally laid in stream beds, is right in Fern Alley. The tunnel itself is right up against the bookstore. So it looks like back in the day, they just bricked up what were natural drainage ways, so.
Do they use that still to move water?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's lots of water.
Is that an issue?
It's an
for the
interesting drainage
construction of the
problem.
building?
No. No, we have buildings built on top of it. We take, there's structural measures that are taken into play. The carrying capacity of the tunnel is not, it's a huge carrying capacity, so it's not overcome. It has some I&I problems. There's things getting in there that, other than stormwater, that shouldn't be in there, but that's all, being addressed over time, especially when new construction takes place. As a matter of fact, one of the considerations for this property is at the zoning board meeting, 2 of the properties up on the hill on State Street actually have their sewer lines underneath the existing building, which is just not a good situation. And Mr. Stauffer ran into that same problem with his apartment up on Court Street recently, had to go to council to try to get some help to relocate that sewer line. So that's another thing, is sanitary situation there is going to be fixed. That's really not a good situation right now.
We'll have to
Well,
wait until
now-
we see what he comes up with. I think Mr. Valentour will be his.
They had, John knew that this meeting was going to happen. I think even at the zoning board meeting, he said, I don't know if he said he'd be here or not, but he was aware that this was coming up. And I think Mr. Stauffer had indicated, too, that the lot, they talked a lot about how deep a parking spot has to be, and that where that house is at, property lines are not parallel, and therefore you may not be able to get a 4-foot strip, but it might be 2 feet at one end and 6 feet at the other.
That's
But they,
right.
and essentially then would come out as an extension of that landscaping that's already there at the Klein Penny rental office. But they didn't present anything.
Well, even the 6-foot end would give planting space for trees.
Yeah, so there
So-
may be some natural sites, planting sites. that
There might
come
be more
about.
there than it appears
Yeah.
where the
When
house
they
is at.
finally draw it
You're not
up.
going to gain anything, the little purple house. You're not going to
Yeah.
gain anything on the plumbing shop side.
Okay.
Well, I encourage
But you
everybody to go
might.
and walk around there. It's, this is,
Well, now, you said something about a retaining wall.
there's back here, I think it's.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
but
Not there,
this is where you were talking about space
Possibly.
for trees.
conceivably. yeah.
Okay. But there's no retaining wall in that area
Don't
that
think so.
anyone remembers.
No.
Okay.
No, in the back of the building right now is the retaining wall.
Okay.
The rear wall functions as the building wall and a retaining wall.
Athens has such exciting possibilities. Okay. Well, I'm.
Well, if we could get some trees along there, it certainly would help.
Yeah, yeah. And it would probably be about as many as we got down at the other end of the street by just leaving trees alone. So, well, we have yet a little bit more to do before.
We have another 6 items.
See, I know, I
They're
think
quick,
it's
though.
bedtime. Yeah.
They're fast.
Okay. Let's see, the next item is that we will be forwarding some landscape regulation revisions to appropriate bodies to review. And let's see, Steve should get a copy of this too, did he?
There's a spare one up
Over
there
there?
somewhere, yeah.
Yes, okay. So look this over,
Not now.
but not now. Yes.
The plan is that we will take this to the Chamber of Commerce, to the neighbourhood associations, to Steve, to the law director, and we'll try and do all of this in parallel, so we can get some comments to this concept that we've got here, where we try to give the developer more freedom in where they put the trees and how the trees are to be planted on the site, but that for larger sites we're going to gain significantly in the number of trees that are planted, because currently the rules are biased so that small developments need a lot of trees, relatively speaking, compared to large developments, where small is less than 40,000 square feet and large is 200,000 square feet. This tries to rationalise all that. It also tries to fit it in with the ideas of the comprehensive plan of achieving a 40% tree coverage at maturity, which we know will never happen with many of these sites because they're on a 30-year lifetime. The trees won't be mature for most of that 30 years, if any of it. And so there's a good deal of slack in there. We've also cleaned up a lot of the language so that where there are additional requirements like the requirement of 1 tree per unit, or the requirement of a tree being planted every 30 feet along the frontage of a property, those trees will automatically be counted in with the general requirement for trees for the site. That wasn't explicit previously. There is requirement now for buffering that's explicit. We're proposing that the zoning inspector not be the one who may decide. It'll be up to the Shade Tree Commission. It will be required, and it'll be the Shade Tree Commission to decide whether it can be ignored or not. And the buffering will be, it's explicit that the buffering is required when we've got mixed-use areas. So, we'll see how people react to it.
Yeah.
Good work. That can't be hard. That can't be easy doing.
Well, the hard part's the bit now we've got to deal with, because now we know what we would like, and we've got to try and convince other people that this is a good idea. The Chamber of Commerce reacted favourably when we first described what we were doing to them, but now we're going to come out with the proposed language, and we'll see what they say.
Yeah, this is a lot of work. David Ingram did it, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is,
And he
a lot of
deserves a lot of
mathematics.
thanks.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
You did
When
very
it's
well.
been passed by council.
We won't hold our breath, but yes, that was a lot of work.
Do you want our input? I mean, he wants to read it
Oh
over.
yeah, I'd
please.
like. I mean,
Okay.
I'd like you to look over it. But I'm just telling you that well, this is this is the first meeting where we formally presented it to the Tree Commission, and so we're just. We're notifying the rest of the commissioners that this is going on, and we're seeking their approval that we now move forward. With what I said we'd do is talk to the Chamber, the Law Director, the neighbourhood associations, and other people who have been interested in this legislation.
So,
You guys have to
any
vote.
comments?
No, we'd have to vote.
Yeah.
Unless there's
We
a
will
major
give it
objection
to Steve. Yeah.
If I could, something that just came up under existing 37.08, commercial, institutional, industrial landscaping. There's a reference in the zoning code in the parking section to this ordinance. However, the zoning code says that government entities are exempt from the zoning code. If they can't meet the requirements, they just have to present to the planning commission the reason why they can't and why they made their best attempt. So government entities are essentially exempt from regulation. We were able to get something in the code, at least to have them come in, at least submit something in writing. And I had a case today at the Planning Commission where an 8,100 square foot parking lot was expanded by 9 spaces. The question was, because I got a complaint about it, did that require landscaping? So 3708 lists 5 retrofit times when you have to go back and retrofit. One's for new developments, which, you know, was that addition to the lot a new development or an addition to an existing lot? So you could say, well, really it wasn't new, it was an addition. It wasn't pavement replacement, it was pavement extension. So the 25% didn't kick in. There was no request to do anything with the building, so there was no expansion of the building or no improvement. And then as you go further down, the 5th retrofit requirement kicks in if it says a lot less than 7,000 square feet is added to. This was a lot that was greater than 7,000.
We're actually proposing to delete that from this.
So it slipped through a little crack there in the existing language. And nonetheless, though, the entity, it was Beacon School is where it was at. And the Planning Commission just said, well, you don't really need, today they just said, you don't fit in the current requirements. So I just wanted to let you know that that's what happened today at Planning Commission. But even if they couldn't meet the requirements and this language was changed and it did apply to them, they would still be coming back to the Planning Commission explaining why they couldn't meet the parking requirement, let's say, or the landscape, any requirement that you might think of, because they're essentially, government entities are exempt. And MRDD is a function or a part of Athens County Commissioners. It is a government entity, just like school, in my opinion, schools are too. State Constitution says they establish a system of public education, so at least to my thinking, public schools are state institutions.
Okay, well.
So, but anyway, just wanted to let you know on that one.
Yeah, thank you.
If you hadn't taken care of, because that was today at the Planning Commission. Thanks.
Okay.
Let's see, I don't think we have anything settled yet on the landscape award, but it'll be coming up, and we do have somebody who will produce a certificate for us at the point where we have a decision. Or do we have a decision?
We have not really settled on any one site at this point.
That's okay.
Good.
I think Project Plant should get it. I mean, of all the places, look at, they have flowers and it's been a drought.
It's true, but they
This
don't
is the
have
Shade Tree
trees.
Commission.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
look at shade
oh,
trees.
yes.
That's right, we're supposed to have really tall plants, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Well, we'll wait for the next meeting then, and get a
Well,
decision then.
I think we were considering perhaps not even
Doing it this year?
doing it this year.
Okay, yeah, it's been a rough year. Things are toasted out there.
We
so
don't even have
it's-
a top 3, no?
No.
Well, there were 3 that were considered.
But we shouldn't say it.
Okay.
So, okay. Well, thank you, Emily, and to Lee, too. The next thing is simply to say that we don't have information at this point. No data has come in about the Emerald Ash Borer inventory.
I
that
didn't
begin.
receive anything. Did you receive anything? Okay, so if we can both follow up and find out if we can.
yeah, I'm supposed to talk with him tomorrow, so. I'm
Okay,
gonna
well, you
to
try
bring
that
it
one, and
up.
I'll give him a call.
And we're just
give
trying to
him a
get the
call.
numbers from the initial
We just want a
20%
copy of the
that we
data,
did.
that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can extrapolate from there to the rest of the
You
city.
know, I feel like I'm being a pest at this stage, but.
No.
It's our data.
Yeah, we want our data.
We did all that work, all
Yeah.
those Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, it will happen yet.
Yeah, I think so.
The next item is the website. Anita has a class, Anita Frederick, who's doing this, has a class conflict tonight. So first Thursdays just aren't going to work for her. And she has done this work. You've got an example of the web page. She has met with Ron Forrest, who has given him his blessings to this presentation, and she has 3 priority pages almost set to go, and she'll be working with Ron at getting those put in place. She'll be emailing you to edit down or up your bios, and this will be also emailed to you.
Do we know what the process is going to be for getting our past minutes in there? I mean, at the moment, all I'm doing is submitting them back to Debbie once we've approved them.
Don't know.
And so, we need to get, the reason they go to Debbie is that she's the secretary for the safety director, and that's where all the records of the tree commission eventually rest. Is she the obvious person then to forward it to Ron to get him in there?
Must be, yes. And I'll tell
So
Anita
when you
that.
have your meeting with Ray, you could
Yeah.
establish that.
Ray has a lot of free time these days. Golly. Let's see. Some people are going to be contacted to have their pictures taken. Emily and David I. So stay tuned. And let's see. We should be thinking about writing, editing of forms that will be posted as PDFs. And after all the rules, policies, and so forth are up, we can think about education pieces. So please look at that. I'll forward her email that sent this, and it's quite nice. The last true bit of business is the tree conference, which is Southeast Ohio Tree Care Conference that Ann is organizing and hosting, and we have our own Ron Lucas as one of the local stars giving a presentation on tree. How did he title it? City of Athens Tree Care Program. So that will be on Thursday, September 27, 2007, and if anybody's watching and wants to participate, you can go to the ODNR site and get information, or get it from Ann Bonner at ODNR. Do we have any other business? Okay, we've saved for the last item of business the reading of the minutes, which we can, I've made my corrections already, and there you are.
Good.
See, the error I found was the tree permits. We were waiting for 10 Coss Street. That's not Cross Street.
Oh,
the
sorry.
dead silver maple. That's okay. And that there was a permit that we also needed right-of-way information on 1012 Fort, trees on an alley to the armory, and the code officer found that those trees were not on the right-of-way. So that's one piece of information.
I meant to give you those things. I found them in the file.
I need more paper. Are there any corrections, additions? Okay. All right. Somebody moved that the minutes be approved
yes.
as, David, I think, just moved.
I moved, they're approved.
And Emily
Need a second.
seconds. Sorry to be a leading. Okay, if there's no other business, then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Steve.